Live link. People are saying they want to listen, and they're complaining that they don't know how to. That it's not going through.
Yes, it's today. We've got a streaming problem.
So today there's a streaming problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Streaming problem, but we are recording. We will put it on YouTube.
All right.
We'll send you a link.
Wonderful.
And then you can be able to share.
Okay, let me close.
Close that one. They will get it later.
They'll get it later.
They'll get it later.
So many people are interested in this topic.
Right.
The Constitution and vaccinations. And our favorite group of people that are interested in this are pastors.
Ah?
And I don't know why pastors are not. I don't know why pastors are not following up from yesterday and challenging, because I think, lady, we grow when we don't have yes men. If somebody disagrees with you, you become better, and the whatever you're talking about becomes better.
But by the way, how was your day today, man? Because of before we get into the gist of the thing.
My day today, I'm recovering.
Okay.
I'm recovering.
Very important.
I'm recovering. I had the pleasure of meeting a wonderful couple that we prayed with, and we broke bread together with the
communion.
Couple. I'm supposed to be lying in bed.
I know. I know radio.
You know, bed.
I know radio.
So I my heart is soul winning. You know. I tell a lot of people that I think I was actually called to be a preacher, not to be this school person, this lawyer person. I'm most alive when I'm talking to people. I'm most alive when I'm preaching to people.
But now your challenge will be one. People have been hearing people preaching, and then I believe that is why you have decided to partner with Westside FM. To say now, let me preach at the larger scale, and then this is the larger scale.
Yes, yes. The footprint that Westside FM has is huge, and I'm praying that people in the West Rand, people in Gauteng, realize how big Westside FM is.
Yeah.
This is very huge. This is very huge.
Sure.
This is one of those. I'm also praying that those brothers of ours, those comrades of ours who have the audacity to come and steal things here, that God will just send electrical waves and people must come and just give back. People must just come and apologize and give back whatever they need to do. But I'm also just appealing to businessmen and people out there to let's put more advertising through this radio station. Let's invest in this radio station. We had the pleasure of interacting with the speaker.
Yes. After our
show. This is very significant. We had the pleasure of interacting with pastors in Mahikeng.
Yes.
And Lichtenberg.
Yes, Lichtenberg.
Also
complain about the stream also because they wanted
to listen. Remember the whole fractional of Mafikeng pastors.
Oh my goodness. This is how big this is. So I'm glad to be here.
Wow.
I'm glad to be here. I couldn't have chosen a better
any
place.
other day. Let's get to the business of
Section 12 of the Constitution. Section 12 of the Constitution. I'm glad that you have a Constitution. I'm very happy.
I've never said the Constitution, but this belongs to the scholars.
Section 12 of the Constitution says that everyone, subsection 1 says, everyone has the right to freedom of security, freedom of the person, which includes the right not to be deprived of the freedom arbitrarily without cause. So what that essentially means is that you can't arrest someone and not put that person on trial. You can't kidnap someone. You can't deprive someone. Even house arrests and even when in mob justice, we saw during the looting.
Yes.
There were community members who stood up there and they said they are taking the law into their own hands and they arrested people there. You can't do that. It's arbitrary. You know, the only legal way in which you can deprive a person of their freedom is if that person is given to the state. Okay?
Okay.
So effectively, those people then have a right to launch a case against you. And this should also empower us. That's why I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive when we're talking about a community policing forum and foot patrols and so on and so forth, because there are many things that are in our constitution that do not allow us to arbitrarily stop somebody from, deprive that person freedom of security. But this is a double-edged sword. This also affects our demand for better policing. Okay. Everyone has the right to freedom and security of person, which includes, number B, the right not to be detained without a trial. So police cannot simply detain you without a trial. There's a case right now where the police detained a guy who wouldn't put on his mask. And when they detained him, they didn't take off his belt, and the guy hanged himself in the cells.
Sure.
Now, there are many things that are procedurally questionable there, right? Did you detain that person after charging that person, or did you just detain that person because that person was drunk and unruly? We have to ask those kind of questions. Okay. Number B is everybody has a right to be free from all forms of violence, whether it's public or private. In its origins. Okay, so this is why corporal punishment is no longer allowed, because of this subclause. This is why we can't have reasonable chastisement. Unfortunately, because of the writing, because of the spirit and letter of the Constitution, even the Chief Justice Mogoeng, who's soon retiring, Christian though he is, he couldn't run away from this one. Okay. You know, so that's why we don't corporally punish our children. That's why it's illegal to punish your child because it says everybody should be free from all forms of violence, whether it's public or private in its sources. And when we know this, that video that we saw of police arresting a young lady violently, and she was dragging and she was kicking and screaming. Do you remember that video? That video shows it speaks directly to this. You know, because the question has to be asked: if that lady was somebody different, if that lady was of a different social standing, different class, if that lady was of a different race, would she have been arrested the way she was arrested? Pulled, you know,
sure,
pulled violently. Into a vehicle, unmarked vehicle, that is, okay, and then not to be tortured in any way. So umuntu akashayo bakithi, whether motu utswitswe or utsitse, hey man, Setswana modimo, whether motu utswitse, or any other way, whether le kreile motu atsama asa apara ko strateng. People have a right not to be tortured. Okay? People have a right not to be tortured. And then number E, people have a right not to be treated or punished in a cruel and inhumane, degrading way. We're getting to where we want to go. Everyone has the right, okay, now subsection 2 of section 12 is everybody has a right to bodily and psychological integrity, which includes the right to make decisions about reproduction, the right to security and control over their body. This is where the vaccine now comes in, and the right not to be subjected to medical or scientific experiments without their informed consent. Now this is where it becomes tricky. So you have a right to the integrity of your body, to control your body. You have a right to control whatever comes onto your body, including injections, including pills. You have a right for control over that, right?
Okay.
You have a right to say no in that context. But remember, we said in the Constitution, there's always Section 36 of the Constitution. Section 36?
Section 36.
Those are the limitation clauses.
Yes, 36 we should be having.
Right. Are you able to read Section 36 in less than 2 minutes?
Section 36.
In terms of Section 36
Mhm.
of the Constitution, the general requirement for the limitation of any right is that it may be limited only in terms of law of general application.
Okay, so in terms of the law of general application, so already that already tells you, Jorge, our rights, though wonderful they are, they can be limited. So that means that somebody can approach the court or approach the authorities and say, even though Ocha lady has the freedom of security and control over her body, but because there is a super spreader event or because she's got a contagious sickness, let her be arrested and let her be forced to take treatment as a bargain for her to exercise, as a bargain for her to be set free.
Okay.
So, so there is this there's the Minister of Health and Goliath case. What the case is about, essentially, the case is about two inmates that had contracted it's the Minister of Health and Goliath, yes. They had contracted a very contagious TB. And these guys were refusing to take treatment. So what the Minister of Health did was she appealed to the authorities, or those people must be detained, and those people must be detained so that they can take treatment.
Okay.
And guess what? The defense of these guys was to say that we have control over our body. And we have control not to be subject to medical or scientific experiments without us. Let somebody go out of their way to convince us that this injection that you're putting in our bodies is good for us. Entertain us, whether you think that it's a conspiracy theory. Entertain our fears, entertain our questions. And this is where we are sitting. Now, in that particular instance, the courts ruled in favor of the minister, and those guys were detained and forced to undergo treatment. Now, will this happen in the case of COVID? Will this happen to employees? Will this happen to school children?
It will.
And it seems that it will. And what will they rely on? And what can you rely on? So if it does happen, they're going to rely on something called the National Health Act Section 7. Okay? It is a pertinent, and this in Section 7 states that health services may be provided without the informed consent where there is a law or a court order permitting it. So the only thing now between forced vaccinations and non-forced vaccinations is a court order.
It's a court order.
A court order. So a court order...
Who will apply for the court order?
So there are three bodies that I think are going to apply for court orders. Number one, employers in the private sector, in the private or public sector.
Yeah.
The health department particularly, right? And then the other people might be businesses or schools. You know, I can think of those people that would want to say, let's apply for this court order so that people can be
vaccinated,
right? And consider. So there is the other route that people are contemplating. in terms of firing people who don't want to. Right for now, I don't see how it can be done right in law. Okay, because firing somebody doesn't constitute limiting that right. It doesn't constitute giving that person an informed consent. So sitting and saying, if you're not vaccinated by this date, then ningaze emsebenzini. Yeah, no, I think they're playing.
Yeah,
maybe industry is relying on the fact that South Africans are very passive. South Africans don't fight for their rights.
But they don't not necessarily that they don't fight for their rights. They don't know their rights because of.
They don't know.
I don't think most of them take time to really scrutinize their rights and get to know what is it that they need to take with. And how can they be able to apply it in their personal spaces and so forth? Because of we are very receiving country. Kunobuntu obuningi.
Somebody used to say, "Silungo Jesu." I don't know. My pastor, I'm not going to say it.
but there is that thing, and that is why I think shows like this will be so helpful to the people to start to build an appetite to say, you know what, I think some of the things I need to know and start to make a research on. You know, because of really, to be honest with you, there are things that we spoke about and we are still speaking about. I was not taking them seriously personally.
And for employees to write through their unions, to write and say that I can't be forced to take a vaccine without my informed consent. Please educate me. I'm seeing this so that if a company is going to say that we want people here on the premises. So if Westside FM wants to say we want Ja Lady and Muruti here every day, whether it's lockdown or whatever else have you. And now you've seen a video that says, hey, you know, when you sanitize, your hands are going to grow and become like the Ninja Turtles, and you're only going to have 3 fingers, you know. You know, this kind of videos that you see.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be treated like somebody that from whom consent is required. And when you seek consent from any individual, you listen to them, you interact with them. So I don't know. Discovery Health is already put its head out there. The president was very careful in how he couched this debate, you know, and he said that we are not going to overlook people's human rights and their constitutional rights, you know. So he played very carefully there. But we do know that industry wants people back on the shop floor. Right? But industry has to be very careful. Let me reread, Muruti, Section 7 of the Health Act. Now, it's not in the Constitution. Please go and download the National Health Act and go to Section 7 of that Health Act and read subsection 1 and subsection C. It says health services may be provided without the informed consent where the law or the court order is permitting it, considering that we are in a state of disaster. So those who apply to court for this thing would say we are in a state of disaster. And the laws have been made and amended as we go along. A law authorizing vaccination without consent would be promulgated unless successfully challenged. Okay. Now this promulgation of this law, again, I'm reading an opinion here. I'm reading somebody's legal opinion here, and I think it's ethical for me to note this person. This is Mto Mapumulo, who's working with Adams and Adams. Okay, and he penned this on the 18th of February in 2021.
But
That's very important.
The section, the Health Act.
So the Health Act is definitely there.
Yeah, but
he's also giving his own opinion.
Yeah, I want first, because of there are so many Health Acts.
Yes.
There's amendments. There is also Act 63 of 1977 or of 2000.
Yes,
Which
good
one are we
point,
looking
good-
at? Because of
good point of
there's a lot of
yes.
amendments that have been done since 1966,
Are you sure you're
1977.
not the lawyer?
Huh?
This guy? Are you sure you're not the lawyer? What happened again? What happened again to your law degree?
No. It's
I think, okay, I'll have to look this up for you.
okay.
Yeah, because it's quoting the Health Act. I think I'd written in another.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go to again section. Let's go to again section 7 again of that Health Act. Section 7C states that the health services may be provided without informed consent where the law or court order is permitting it. Ne? And then D states that medical services may be provided without consent where failure to treat a person or a group of people will result in a serious serious risk to public health. Now this is where enforced COVID-19 could happen.
Okay.
This is where enforced COVID-19, and for them basically not to use subsection D, section 7, subsection 1, subsection D, there would have to be a ventilation of the constitutional court that says no, this is unconstitutional. Okay, so what is happening here? I guess this is being read in the context of the Disaster Management Act. I worry about the Disaster Management Act in Fundis. I'm seriously worried about the Disaster Management Act. The Disaster Management Act is not in our constitution, so there is only a state of emergency.
Okay.
Okay, so state of disaster is not in our constitution. So the rules of state of disaster do not appear anywhere in our constitution, and we need to force our legislatures to actually amend our constitution.
No, sure, but I should think when I advocate to say that this is not the first SARS cough, right?
And this is not the first natural disaster.
It's not the first natural disaster.
Yeah, we've had floods.
Right. We have all those. But now, why?
Urgently, South Africans. This is where we need active citizens.
Yeah.
You don't know how important it is for you to write to the Minister of COCTA, to write to the Minister of Constitutional Development, and say, amend the Constitution, so that it deals with all of these things.
But there's no
amend the Constitution. Amend the Health Act so that it comes out clearly on issues of Section 12. Let it deal with those matters clearly. Because as we are seeing in the world, as we're seeing around the world, we can't be, I'm going to use a word that, is very dangerous to mention, ebusuku. Difficult English words, ebusuku, are not good. You'll sleep with a headache. There's a word that sociologists, more than lawyers, are using. It's called to infantilize. Ukwenza abantu abantwana.
Okay, yeah.
That is as much a problem.
From the word infant, okay. Infantilizing.
If it's a social distance, and
but I should think at the same time the government is protecting herself, because of, remember, if you don't have a point of reference, it's going to be a problem. Now, everything, the amendment, that is why at all the time, local level, what they will do, they will have to put regulation.
What is the litigations that have been won against the Minister of COCTA?
It's a lot.
Show that.
No, it shows.
They have not helped themselves at all.
But well, I understand from that perspective to say at all the time, because of you don't have a point of reference.
Yeah.
That is why you are caught at all the time.
I mean, in part we can say that from the Minister of Health and Goliath, there was a ventilation of the law, which then allows us to have principles. So basically, we make laws in two ways in democratic countries: through courts. So courts will read the constitution and they'll give an interpretation, or through the legislature.
Okay.
Right? So this is one of those questions that really needs to be dealt with. And you are right, Mfundisi, you know, this is not the first corona. And this is probably not the last corona. What's going to happen when we have Ebola? What's going to happen when we have a mixture of, you know, SARS-CoV-2 and Ebola? You know, we are there.
Because the possibility of mutation on that is possible.
Very high.
Yeah.
I mean, already now, people. I'm a proponent of ivermectin, and already now there's debates, there's talk about ivermectin is not enough. Ivermectin is not enough as a prophylactic. Ivermectin doesn't really work as a prophylactic going forward. There's already talk that, you know, 2 jabs of the vaccination are not enough.
Not enough.
So we are seeing increasing even in Europe and the United States
they're bringing boosters.
Now doubling of masks. You know what I'm saying? So these things are coming. Yes, it's great. Yes, it's great for now, Chaledi, that it's great for now that people who are being reinfected are not dying. So vaccinations have got that aspect.
Yeah.
But all I've come to say today is that to the authorities that are listening, to the companies that are listening.
Let me start by putting a disclaimer. Listeners,
these views are not the views of Westside FM.
These are the views not of Westside FM, but of our guests.
These are the views Gambali, not even Umbali. Yes.
I must put the disclaimer.
That's fine. These are the views Gambali, not even Umbali, not even Westside FM. I want to say to the state, and I want to say to corporates and everybody listening, to deal with COVID-19 effectively, you are going to need to stick to the spirit and letter of the Constitution and get informed consent of people. So don't try and bulldoze this thing. Don't try and bulldoze. We've seen this in France. They've tried to bulldoze and put in a vaccine passport. I've actually have my vaccine passport, and I came to the studio with my vaccine passport. You know, I wanted to be dramatic when I entered. I wanted to show you what he right again. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying that
as if I don't know. I don't have. As if I don't have.
But what I'm saying is that the more progressive way forward, rather than forcing employees, church members, and whoever else have you to comply to this, get their informed consent. Deal with the theories, conspiracy theories that have come around the efficacy. Deal with the fears of death. Deal with that. You know, engage your people. Companies seem to think right now that they can just simply say, you know, Health Act plus Constitution, if you don't jab by this time, we're going to have to let you go. I'm not sure if it's that easy. I'm definitely not sure if that's easy. And I'm worried about the legal opinion that sometimes flies online.